Hello everyone, and thank you for attending the How to Use the new TracePro IES LDT and Candela Analysis Utility for General, Roadway, and Luminaire Classification. Today I'll be the presenter. My name is Mike Govin. I'm the Vice President of Sales for Lambda Research Corporation. The format for today's presentation will be a 20 to 25 minute presentation followed by a quick question and answer session. Please submit your questions anytime using the question box in the GoToWebinar control panel as shown on the right. There are additional resources for today's webinar. You can look at all past TracePro webinars on the webinar section of our website. You can look at tutorial videos in our video section. The TracePro step-by-step tutorials are in the tutorial section, and the information on upcoming TracePro training classes are in the training section. The current TracePro release today is TracePro 7.2.6, and it was released on December 5th, 2012. TracePro 7.3, the early access release, is currently available, and that's where you'll find this new IES utility. These releases can be downloaded by anyone with a current maintenance and support agreement, and you can find all this at www.lambdares.com. Today's outline is going to be an introduction to the new IES LDT Candela Analysis Utility, and we're going to see how to import IES files, how to export them to show general reports for lighting, luminaire, and roadway classification, and also how to export this source information directly into TracePro to create source files and file sources. The IES LDT Analysis Utility overview will be shown, including its main window, the File Open window, and the Analysis Viewer window. And finally, we'll go in depth with the Analysis Viewer window to show you how to make templates that will create reports that are customized to your responses and questions. Okay, so let's take a quick look and introduce you to the new IES LDT Analysis Utility. The IES LDT Analysis Utility has several different menus: a file menu, a main menu, and an analysis menu. In the file menu, you're going to open files, you're going to save files to different formats, and you're going to have an export menu to create surface and source file properties. The main window is going to show you 5 different output results: 3D polar distribution plots, Type A and Type B goniometer plots, light distribution curves, polar Candela plots for instance, and irradiance plots. In the analysis menu, we're going to learn how to use the template editor and the report viewer to look at different reports, and there are 3 built-in: D1, D2, and D3. The IES LDT Analysis File menu looks as you can see on the following screen. On this screen, you can see that there's the file menu, the analysis menu, and in the file menu, you can open files, save files, and export files, and of course, exit the utility. The open menu, when you use the open menu, you can open IES, LDT, TracePro Candela files in a general ASCII file format for Angular data retrieval. So this will bring your file in. Once you've brought it in, you'll then see a 3D display by default. This will show you exactly the output in 3 dimensions for a polar angular distribution plot. You'll also see all of the source information for this particular IES file that I just brought in here. This is a security light and has a very wide angle of emission. You can see who tested it, who the name of the company is that did the testing, who the manufacturer was, and all the information that you would expect to have in an IES header. After an opening a file with Angular data, you can then plot 5 different plots, including the 3D polar, which is the default shown below, Type A, Type B, light distribution curves, or irradiance plots with multiple display options for each type. Now, as you can see on the right there, you can see the File Open menu where you can select the different types of files that you can bring here. Notice there are 4 different types: IES file, illuminate, Candela, and an all file format. Once you've brought the file in, you can switch between Type A, Type B, light distribution curves, and of course 3D polar view. And each one of these views allows you to take a look at several different types of output. In this case, I've selected the type A goniometer plot, and it has 4 different optional formats: contour fill, contour line, log scale plots, and grid view output. As you can see, the top left plot is the contour fill plot, the bottom left is the contour line, the bottom right is the log scale plot, and the top right is the grid view plot. So you can get a lot of detailed information and get the right plotting options that you request to see this type of data and what you feel comfortable viewing. The IES LDT analysis file menu also allows you to save files. So if you bring in a file that is in IES format, you can output an LDT file, or vice versa. You can bring in a TracePro Candela file and export an IES file. So this is your file save as function in the utility. The third menu item is the export option. This allows you to export data in both TracePro source file and file source property formats. As you see on the right here, you can see that the different source types are allowed. In this case, we have surface source property and file source as the selections. We can then write this information out directly to a catalog name and a property name. In this case, I've selected a source generator type catalog name and a property name of property 1. And of course, you're going to have to put in a description and the emission. Once you do that, hit the OK key. That'll then write this file out to where you've specified. So this is a way that you can convert any type of Angular file format that is output by TracePro into a TracePro surface source or file source property that can later be brought in and used as a source in the program. The IES LDT Utility Analysis menu, which is the second menu option, allows you to export data into different reports. These can be made by you, or they can be the 3 built-in reports, D1, D2, and D3, and I'll go through what each one of those menu items allow me to do. Another option you'll see down there at the bottom is to add a report. Using the template editor, we can create any type of report style that we like, save that report, and then have that pop up as one of our menu items in the analysis menu. And I'll show you shortly how to do that as well. Okay, first of all, if I selected the built-in D2 report, you would see that the standard lamp information that would come out in the report include the Candela and luminaire classification information and plot, as you see it right over here. So at left, we see the standard 3D polar plot, and then we're able to take that, and if we go to the analysis menu and select D2, we're able to put out a polar Candela distribution plot and an angular plot, standard angular classification plot that shows that information. The D3 report that we see here from the analysis menu allows us to export luminaire classification and roadway classification type plots. So you see over here on the left, you can see that we have a polar Candela distribution, we have a roadway analysis output, and we also have a luminaire classification output for this particular IES file that we've brought in. In this case, it's a roadway type light, and we've actually going through and seeing that type of output on the roadway and seeing the luminaire classification for it. So this is a quick way to get out some very nice plots and using one of the 3 built-in D3 report. Finally, you're able to create your own. In the utility menu, you can go through to the analysis portion, go to the template area, and if you bring up the template editor, you can see on the right there that you get a blank screen. So this is your template editor over here on the right. You start with a blank graphical grid, and then you'll see that there are icons over here on the left. You can then drag these icons to the template and request any type of information that you'd like to have for your particular report. You could customize this. So if you wanted this to be a company template where you have all the standard information that you expect to maybe put up on your website or you expect to include into your reports, you can make a nice little template here and then save it and have it available from the analysis menu. That's your report. Let me show you how to do that. The template editor allows you to place items into the template by using drag and drop operations from the top left set of menu items that are shown here. You can then save these using the File Save feature underneath the File menu here. And so what pretty much has been done here is that I've gone and I've grabbed several of the menu items. For instance, I've taken an image and I've actually dragged it over, and that happens to be the Lambda logo, and put it over here down in the bottom right-hand corner. I've taken a text box, dragged it over, and put it at the top of the template. I've then dragged over other menu items, and if I have an IES file up, it'll automatically drag that information into that space. So here's an irradiance map, for instance, over here in the top right. And I just kept dragging menu items that I wanted and stuck them into my report. Finally, after we've created the report, we can then save the report using the template editor's save function. And I've saved it to a menu item called My Report. And then when I get into the analysis menu here, you notice that we have an Add Report over here on the bottom. And I've added this report to the templates that I have built in to the IES LDT analysis utility. So not only do we have the 3 predefined reports, but we have the report that I created as well in the past slide. Anytime I invoke that report, then I'll get all the information that I created in that previous slide. User-created reports can now be loaded then from the Analysis Report Viewer, because we've now added them to our selection, using the Load Menu Selection item in the Report Viewer. Just browse for any user-defined template, load the report, and then it will load all the information from the Angular information that you have output in the analysis utility. So for instance, I loaded that security light form, and you can see all the output from the security light over into the report format. I can then save this, and I'll show you how to do that shortly here. As soon as we export a report brought into the viewer, that's in that viewer, we can save it into 5 different types: PNG files, JPEGs, bitmaps, GIF, and PDF files. We can then save those and send them to anybody that we want, and we now have a complete report ready to go. So now that we've gone through the complete demonstration of the IES LDT Candela utility, let's see how easy it is to import, create reports, and export reports live using TracePro. So first of all, you have to bring up TracePro 7.3. So you'll notice over here that TracePro 7.3 is shown. I've got the early access build 13024. I'm running on a 64-bit machine. So this means that I'm going to have a lot more memory to play with, but really the utility doesn't need that much memory in terms of running. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to go into the utility section of TracePro. So if I go over from the file utility, it's the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th menu item, and then you see all the new utilities. Now in 7.3 we also introduced the solar emulator, which is down there at the bottom, and then you'll see the IES LDT analysis utility. Now this is a revised utility. We've had the IES file capability to import before in View, but we've never had the complete capability that comes in with this new utility in terms of its analysis capability, which is the second menu item that you see here on the screen. So at this point in time, we're going to bring in a file. So we go to the File menu, and the File menu has 4 different options, as we've just talked about. And of course, the one that we want is the Open menu. The File Open menu brings up a browser that allows us to look at different lighting. For instance, I've got a full set of IES files, and for instance, I've taken these off of different sites. I have both Zoomtabel and the Lithonia catalogs, and I'm going to go over here one more second here and go up. Show you a little bit more about that. There we go, IES distribution files. And I've got the Lithonia lighting catalog up here. So if I go into the outdoor catalog, as you've seen here, I can look at things like area lighting, flood lighting, roadway lighting, security lighting. So let's first of all look at the security light that we've been working on for a little bit here. So this is an IES file. And if I double click on it, it brings in the IES file into the viewer. So we can see that this is the security light that I've been talking about. And at this point in time, we have a full 3D resolution. You can spin the plot around by holding down the left mouse key and then spinning it around by using the cursor. We can now go into the analysis utility and create a report from one of the standard reports, and I'll bring in D1 since we haven't talked about that one. It takes a couple of seconds to load the complete information for the Candela distribution curves that come default in D1. So we can see that the D1 report has both polar Candela distribution plot information and rectangular Candela distribution plot information. So this is your D1 report. You can export this into 5 different formats that we've just talked about. I usually use JPEG files. And then when we get done here, we can have a security.jpg, for instance, by saving the file into that particular format. Let's look at some of the other reports that are available. I don't have to go back to the main menu. I can go back to the load file over here, and I can bring in all my other information. For instance, I have that all report that I created for the webinar over here, and this is going to load all the information for these 6 plots that I've requested for this particular report. In the top left-hand corner, I've put the name of the company. In the bottom right, I'm going to open this a little bit more. You can see that we have the Lambda logo. I've put a text title up here at the top so I can see exactly what type of light this is. So that reminds me. The polar Candela distribution curve is shown here in the top left. Rectangular Candela distribution top middle. Irradiance map top right. Here's a roadway classification bottom left. Luminaire classification system middle bottom. And finally on the bottom right is the standard angular information for the particular luminaire. This shows you the vertical and horizontal distance versus the angle of lux. So how do we create our own? That's a good question. We need to go to the analysis menu and go into the template editor. If I bring up the template editor, I'm going to make this full screen for you. You can see that we specify a panel size. In this case, it's 1024 by 768. And we have all of our menu items. There are basic menu items. If I put the cursor on it, it'll show it larger so I can actually grab that image. And I can grab the image and I can just put it wherever I want. Once I put the image in place, I can right-click and I can load a file format. For instance, in this case, I'm going to go to the Lambda graphics area and I'm going to pull in a logo. It's a little bit bigger so I can see what's going on here. And I'm going to go into logo section. And I'm going to bring in the Lambda logo by just sliding down here. I'm going to apply it, and now I have the Lambda logo. I can stretch it, and then I can drag it by holding down the left mouse key and putting it wherever I want. I can put text by grabbing the text window and dragging it to the left here, putting it wherever I want. Once again, typing in some text as a header. And then going through and dragging the analysis items that I want wherever I want to put them. Dragging on the bottom right-hand corner allows you to make the irradiance maps larger, for instance. Bringing in things like Candela plots are no problem whatsoever by just dragging those over. I could do the same thing with the Candela rectangular plot that I want to bring in. For instance, I have beam illuminance that I have not shown you is another possibility. Roadway classification is another plot that I would probably want to be using here, depending on what my company was doing and what I would be interested in. So these are things that you can all just drag over. You notice we have standard analysis items in here. If the icon's a little bit small, just leave the cursor on it. The tooltip will pop up and show you exactly what that is. So this is how you would create standardized reports. When you've got done creating the report the way that you want it, you can then save it. And I'm going to save this to a webinar. And these become TPL files. They're template files. I save it, and now that's available for later use. I can now get out of the webinar template, out of the template editor by clicking on the right X in the top right-hand corner to get us out of there. You can also load these by doing add report. You can go back and you can specify what the name of the report is. I can call this webinar, and I can then add that TPL file into the dialog, and that now becomes my template and my report that I can later pull up. And I save that last one into the webinar section. So if I go into Lambda, I go into webinars over here, I should have a TPL file. And there you go. And I can now double click on it. That is now going to add this to my webinar as being one of my selections in my analysis report file. You can also do things like change the font style of the editor and what you actually see in terms of your text. That's another option here. And also there's a nice little help utility that allows you to go in and take a look at the help for this particular utility in terms of sections and introduction, modeling optical sources, getting started, file menu, analysis menu, and an IES text panel. So this pretty much shows how to use the complete utility, where you can get help on the utility, and it's really a simple utility since it really only has 4 menu items that you can quickly go through to define everything that you might want to do in this particular output. Finally, I have not shown you that there are 5 different plot types. Here's the type A goniometer plot. Here's the type B goniometer plot. Here's the light distribution curve. And notice that these all have options. For instance, you can look at polar output. You can look at rectangular output when you load files. You can specify the number of horizontal angles that are shown over here on the right-hand corner of this particular plot. And finally, the last plot is the radiance plot. And you can specify the screen size, the screen distance, the dynamic range, the brightness, and so forth. And here's all your information about that source that we read in from the IES file, and just show you to make sure that you have brought in the correct IES file. Let's just bring in one more. We'll go back to the Lambda TracePro examples area, and this will have the IES file information. Go back to the Lithonia lighting, and we'll look at a roadway type map here. We've got the outdoor, we've got flood lighting, we've got roadway lighting. So here's a lot of different lighting out here. Just opening up a standard semi-cutoff type lens, you can see some of the unusual distributions in IES files that are out there from different vendors. Looking at one more, opening up one more particular system. This has got a medium cutoff, so you can see the difference between a short and a medium cutoff. And so you can go through and you can view all your IES files and then look at these in terms of their angular pattern, and you can fit these to your application. Going back to the PowerPoint at this point in time. That concludes the live demonstration. All of the recorded session and the slides for this webinar will be placed in the webinar section of the Lambda Research website for later viewing and use. I'll also put up there the My Reports template if you want to take a look at that one. I can also pop up a couple of IES files so that you can grab those if you don't have any. This new IES LDT analysis utility is in current early access release, and you can download it for anybody who's on support from our website. We really would appreciate your feedback on this new utility. Please send us any feedback that you might have on it to sales@lambdares.com, and we'll be contacting you to let you know anything else that we add in the meantime. And at this point in time, I'm going to open up the webinar for question and answer. Does anyone have any questions out there? I see that we do have a question. Can we have a copy of these slides? Yes, they will be available after this webinar. They'll probably in the next couple of hours. I will upload them to the website, and they will be available in the webinar section of the website. Are there any other questions? I don't see any hand raised. Hand raised over here in the question. This is a simple utility, so I didn't expect any, but I really appreciate you coming out, and I would like to have you guys all try out the program if you have a second. It's not that very difficult to use, as you've seen. It does have a lot of possibilities. If we need any other formats, please let us know. And at this point in time, it looks like we don't have any other questions. I'm going to close down the webinar. I thank you all for attending, and I hope you look forward to our next webinar. This is Mike Govin, and I hope to talk to you in the future. Bye for now.